All right. Thank you. To lead us today in by telephone, I hear is our own Tyler Davis for the invocation, pledge of allegiance, and to recite the four-way test. Tyler is a CPA and advisor with Saunders, Ralston, and Dantzler. He's heading up our VISTI program this year, so work with him, please. And Tyler is a one-year Rotarian. So Tyler, would you please lead us in the invocation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this gathering of Rotarians today, and thank you for the ability to allow us to meet and discuss how we can better serve our community. Help us to make a difference in the lives of those in Lakeland, Polk County, and throughout the state of Florida. Please bless our time together today and be with everyone who couldn't meet today and keep them safe throughout the next week. We ask this prayer in your name. Amen. And now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Tyler, thank you so much. I hope you're not driving the whole time you were doing that.
I stopped. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Trey, our current board secretary, Trey Harden, would you mind leading us in the introduction of the guest and visiting Rotarians?
I guess I need to unmute myself there. And I see that we've got visiting Rotarians, Doug McCall and Christina Spencer. Do we have any other visiting Rotarians today? And do we have any guests today?
Trey, this is Don Selvage. It's my honor again to introduce Carol Hornsby, the Media Communications Director at Family Elder Law. She's on the road between here and Sebring. So we do welcome her. She's now been accepted into Rotary Information. She's a past member of this club. So please join me in welcoming Carol. And I'm pleased to bring back for the second time someone who needs no introduction, John Loud, a former member of this club, who is the general manager of Spring Hill Suites. So John, I see you there. What's on your mind today?
I am so happy to be back at Rotary and to see all my friends. And thank you for getting me back at Rotary finally. Long time coming. Happy to be back home.
Welcome, John and Carol. Do we have any other guests today?
Trey, I have visiting again Ed Young, the Executive Director for the Aerospace Center for Excellence. And he's on the line today on the video. So Ed, if you wouldn't mind saying hello.
Hello. I think Gwen just invited me so she could see my Halloween decorations again.
Welcome,
Very
Ed.
true. Glad you're here.
Very colorful.
Any other guests today? Okay, thank you, and welcome to everyone.
All right, Trey, thanks. Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us. We'll step next into Happy Dollars. Anybody want to make a donation to Rotary International and give us some Happy Dollar news?
Yeah, this is Tyler Davis again. My dad, who is past president of the Carrollton, Georgia Rotary Club, is retiring from 25 years of being the pastor at First Baptist Church in Carrollton, Georgia. His final Sunday is next week. So that's my childhood home, my childhood church. And so just couldn't be happier for my dad. And he's finally getting to retire and do some things that he wants to do after serving the community for a long time. So couldn't be happier.
Fantastic. Congratulations to your dad, Tyler. Anybody else? I hear crickets. All right, moving on then to announcements. I don't know if Jack joined us, Trey, or not, but you want to take the golf tournament?
Sure. We are 10 days away from the golf tournament. We still have spots for a couple of teams if you would like to play. We're doing a four-man scramble. We're benefiting, feeding Tampa Bay, as well as providing money to buy more AEDs for the Lakeland Police Department. We would love to have you come out and play. We have a dinner following the tournament that will be the next actual Rotary Fellowship event. So we would love to have everyone come to that. Tickets are $50 for the dinner, and there will be a silent auction there. We're also still looking for volunteers. We have anything from helping with registration starting at around 11 in the morning, watching or being a witness on the hole-in-one holes, helping pass out beverages on the course, and anything through dinner and helping clean up. So any help is certainly appreciated. And finally, we are still looking for basket of cheer items, and I'd be happy to come pick them up. Or you can bring them by my office. Any sort of beer, wine, or liquor would be great. So we hope everybody can make it out, and we're looking forward to having a good event.
Great. Thank you, Trey. Thanks for yours and Jack's work on putting this together. This is going to be a great fundraiser. And just a note for Tom Conger, all you have to do is be able to count to one, and you can be a witness on the hole-in-one contest. So I'm going to nominate you. Stacy Williams, are you in the audience to talk about World Polio Day?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you.
Just a wonderful fact, Rotary International and its partners have reduced polio cases by 99.9% since 1988. Next Monday, please join us at City Hall at 2:45 p.m. If you have a red polo shirt, please wear it for the proclamation of World Polio Day that will be October 24th. Our very own District Governor, Mark Skolnick, has arranged for a special speaker on Saturday, October 24th, and it is past international president, Ravi Ravindran. I know I was going to mess that up. And he's coming to us at 10 o'clock Eastern via Zoom from his home in Sri Lanka. So you can find that Zoom link on the district website on the Zoom on the 24th. Thank you, President Joel.
All right, Stacy, thank you so much. I'm glad you had to say that name instead of me. So like she was saying, we're going to meet at City Hall at 2:45. It's a proclamation given towards the front of the City Commission meeting. So we had red shirts given out for last year. If you still have it, bring it and wear it. And if you don't, just wear a red shirt, and please come join us for that. All right, Stacy, thank you. Don or Gary Clark, I don't know if Gary's in the audience, but I know good and well Don is. You want to talk about the Veterans Day ceremony?
Thank you. I don't think Gary's here, but our annual Veterans Day ceremony is combined this year with the Rotary Salute to Veterans, the breakfast. We're not having that out of Heritage Baptist Church. Instead, we're combining this. We're dedicating a new monument at the park and also honoring Veterans of the Year and Veteran Supporters of the Year. So this is the first outdoor event. We're taking precautions, and we're hoping we have a good attendance. It's really sponsored and hosted by the 5 Lakeland Rotary Clubs this year. So I hope you can make it at 10 a.m. on Saturday, November the 7th, down at Lakeland Veterans Memorial Park. Thanks.
All right, Don, thank you. And thank you for your continued commitment to our veterans. Yours and Gary's both. Thank you. One more announcement. We are having a board of directors meeting this evening. Hope that's not a surprise to the board of directors, but this is open for anyone. If you would like to join, this, of course, is going to be done by the dreaded Zoom. So if you would like to join, just get a hold of Beth, and we can send you a link so that you can dial in as well. And dial in is what you say when you're as old as I am. All right, let's get on to our program today. Kim Brunson, you're going to be doing the announcement, I think. So Kim is our business relationship manager with Publix. She's on the board of directors. She is our esteemed program chair, one of the tougher gigs that we have in our committees. And then Kim is also a 7-year Rotarian. So Kim, would you do the introduction, please?
Thank you, President Joel. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Ryan Reis. He comes to us from the Lakeland Chamber. He has served as Director of Public Affairs since 2019. Prior to his tenure at the Chamber, he worked 13 years at the Kaiser University in several student service positions, the most recent as Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Services of the university. Prior to working at Kaiser University, Mr. Reis worked for a nonprofit agency that was funded by the Department of Juvenile Justice and the Department of Children's and Families. He also volunteered his time in the Lakeland community as a member of Career Source Polk Board, Rotary International, City of Lakeland Midtown CRA, the Building Healthier Polk Initiative, and Mid-Florida SHRM. Mr. Reis is a graduate of the Chamber's Public Leadership Institute of Polk County in 2015, received an Associate of Arts degree in journalism from Polk State College, a Bachelor of Arts in criminology from the University of South Florida, and his MBA from Kaiser University. He currently resides in Lakeland with his wife, Lee, and 10-year-old son, Eli. So with that, let's welcome Ryan.
Thank you, Kim. I believe Amanda is going to give me co-host so I can pull up my 75 slides. Alice said that I needed to speak for about 3 hours, so I have about 70 slides on just 6 amendments. So you guys are in for that dreaded Zoom ride that Joel was talking about. So let's see. Can everybody see that? All right. Well, first off, I don't want to use old friends, but it's great to see a lot of friends on this call from my years in Lakeland. So thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to discussing the 6 amendments. I'm just hoping that everyone on this call can take away something to have conversations about the amendments. I don't necessarily believe amendments need to be a partisan issue, although they can be. I know some have voted early. Thank you for having me before the early voting started. And then, of course, the election on the 3rd. But, I just hope this is an informative session. And I will have to, preface you with, I may spend a little more time on Amendment 2 for those that are following the chamber. All right. First off, just a 101, middle school history here. The Florida Constitution is obviously a document that describes the duties, structures, and functions of the government of the state of Florida. Many times, and I put this in here because many times individual groups, you may know some of them that have put initiatives on the ballot this year, are looking to get something passed, something in the Constitution that's better served through our legislature and our elected officials. We have the power to elect our officials when we see an issue out there, and that in my opinion is the way to go when it comes to certain things, and you'll see that with some of the amendments that we will be talking about. Still 101 here. For those, I'm sure you all know, there's 5 ways constitutional amendments can be proposed and get to the ballot through, obviously, petitions, things like that. The 5 are the joint resolution by the legislature, citizens initiatives. We hear a lot about that. Constitutional Revision Committee, that met maybe 2 years ago, and I believe they meet every 20 years. And then the Taxation Budget Reform Commission, as well as a constitutional convention that needs to be voted on by the citizens. I have the first 2 highlighted because as you see, we move through these. Those are the 2 those two have the impact on this election and the ballot. As you see in the red there, a proposed amendment requires at least 60% approval from the voters. And as I moved through, I went back. University of North Florida recently had a poll on those 6 amendments. So I'll give you a percentage of where they're polling. And so I just wanted to keep in mind that it needs at least 60%. So if it's an amendment that you are not interested in, you feel is harmful, you got to support and pray for that 41% and switch that and keep it from getting to that 60% there. Things to consider when voting on amendments. Who proposed the amendment? I know there's individuals out there, there's probably individuals on this call that will go straight down the ballot and vote no on any constitutional amendment on a ballot. There are those individuals out there. Others will consider who is proposed, whether it came from an elected officials or a lawyer who's the wealthiest, claims lawyer and, in the country who resides in Orlando. Those, so it's important to know who put these forward, who's part of those groups. As you see, we move through there. If it's a citizen initiative, I've included the group so that you can go back and research it, because I think that's important to see what their interest on getting that on the ballot and why. And so why did they propose the amendment? This is not a partisan issue. It happens on both sides. The left will put something on there to attract voters out there, and then when they go out there, they'll go straight to the top of the ballot and vote for the governor or vote for the president. So it's not just the left, it's the right has done it before with those interest groups, so those citizens. So it is important to research that and see where they're coming from. And then with that, at the root, it could be a partisan issue, like I just stated. It could be someone wants to, get the left out there to vote, in this case for, the Democratic candidate. And like I said, I may be referring to Amendment 2, so let's not play the game of what I'm referring to. But you want to see that. Not all of them are partisan issues. You'll see that as well on this ballot. Constitutional amendments are tougher to change. Once again, I'll refer back to Amendment 2. Once that minimum wage goes into the Constitution, it's a lot harder than if it was in the House or up in at the Capitol when they're discussing and working through legislation. It's important to realize the pros and cons of each. And I think, and I hope everyone on here, and I'm pretty sure, you do your research, you're informed. I know in presidential years or years where we are looking for a new governor, a lot of times we're looking at just those candidates at that top, and we're not paying necessarily close attention to the ballot when it comes to initiatives such as the amendments. A lot of times the titles, it's like reading the newspaper. You see that title and you're like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. And then you read the article and it's not coming to the end, or vice versa. So it's important to realize the pros and cons and not just look at the title. Once again, when it comes to the amendments, don't just focus on the top of the ballot. I mean, we all saw the Saturday night skit, a couple of weeks ago as a debate and things like that. And we get caught up in that in our conversations, and those are the conversations you don't want to have when you walk into a bar or at church. You don't want to necessarily get engaged in those political debates. But sometimes we do get focused on what we read. It's great press, the top of the ballot and things like that. So you don't want to get stuck in that mindset with the tunnel vision, just focusing at that. We want to make sure that we are looking at the amendments and researching them, looking at the groups that support them, as I said. And these are the conversations that that we can have with our family and friends. Just discuss the facts with these and the impact, and then the long-term impact. So we don't want to ignore the long term, especially when it comes to constitutional amendments that are there. We get them there, and like I said, it's sometimes harder to change. We're not looking down the road at the long-term impact. It sounds great now, but it may not be beneficial down the line. As I stated, you want to read beyond the amendment title. You get a lot of these individuals, they'll go vote and they'll see the title, raise minimum wage, pretty much get rid of the primaries. They see that like, oh, great, as an independent, I can vote, but they're not seeing the long-term impact or understanding or researching beyond the title of the amendment. So just make sure that, when you have these conversations that you talk to your colleagues about looking into it. They may not agree with you on it, but at least they have the facts and they can see the long-term impact on that. And then finally, with things to consider, it's okay to have these conversations. With my role here, obviously, we've been talking a lot about the amendment too and how that impacts small businesses. And I know everyone on this call is either a business owner or involved in business. So it's important to have these conversations. Obviously, you get your facts and everything lined up and you're good to go. But if it's impacting your business and another business owner is only seeing minimum wage, oh, that looks great for my son. Well, maybe it isn't. So you want to have those conversations. All right, here's the meat of the discussion here, the amendment. So I'll give you a couple pros and cons and what it means to vote yes or no. Citizens, this is citizenship required to vote in the Florida elections. So as you can see there, I won't read this one to you, but the Florida citizens voters, they're the ones that push this through. This one is currently, believe, trending at 78% in favor of passing right now, according to the University of North Florida. What's the impact on us? It's not much impact. If you vote yes, it supports amending the Florida Constitution to state only a citizen of the U.S. who is 18 years old can vote. If you vote no, it opposes making that amendment. So it really is just two words that it changes. There's no real formal opposition here in the state that I can find, but it's really just about the words. And so it's not, I don't even really need to spend more than 60 seconds on this one, like I said. All right, this is the one, if you are a chamber member or you've been following the chamber's social media and things like that, the chamber itself has came out and opposed this. On the surface, this goes back to reading just the title of the amendment. Everybody wants everybody to make a little more money, but where's the trickle-down effect on that? You'll see Florida for a Fair Wage is the citizens group that put this through. The impact will be devastating, especially currently in this pandemic where businesses are struggling already. This will go into effect next year with over 6 years reaching that $15. We will be the first state in the country to have minimum wage in our Constitution if it does pass. We are 18% higher right now than the federal average for minimum wage. We only have, according to the Florida Chamber, 2% of the population in Florida are making minimum wage. So believing that possibly that minimum wage will increase the poverty level or help people get out of that poverty level, only 2%. This is an entry level, minimum wage was an entry level. It wasn't meant to be a living wage when it was created. The cities that have, and you can do your research on this, the cities that have increased minimum wage are struggling now. Seattle's one of them. So these are just things to consider. Also, with Florida's aging population on fixed incomes, everything's going to go up. The cost, consumer costs will go up. Individuals, employees will lose benefits. They'll lose jobs. My son, as the bio said, is 10 years old. So by the time this reaches its maturity at $15, that job at McDonald's or Wendy's may not be there. They're already going to automated systems, but businesses are going to look for ways to cut costs. So that is where this stands. It's going to hurt, and I was going to mention Florida with our senior population. I mentioned the youth as an entry-level position, but on a fixed income, things are going to go up. Also, individuals that are just above the minimum wage right now that are $16, $17, for instance, medical assistants, they'll eventually, with a degree, would want an increase on that. So it's just a whole can of worms that this would open up. The Lakeland Chamber, the Florida Chamber opposed The Florida Restaurant and Lodging, as you know, if any of you, I think John here is in the hotel industry. I mean, hotels and restaurants have been hit hard. The minimum wage will affect servers in that industry. They're not going to make as much as they're making with the tips. So that's just something to consider. Right now, this has gone down a little bit. It's been trending on the polls around 65. It's at 60% now in favor of passing. So we just got to, get down to 59% for those that are opposed to it. But once again, this one is the one that I spend most of my time over the past few weeks working on. So I know a lot about this one, but it can be harmful, and this goes back to understanding the long-term effects and really increasing a minimum wage during a pandemic when the economy was struggling. Those are things to consider. So, all right. Amendment 3, all voters vote in primary elections for state legislator, governor, and cabinet. Well, this is an election year, and we see the conversations. I can tell you, the Republicans, the Democrats, and the other parties don't agree on a lot. But in opposition of this is the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and even the Green Party are opposed to this. The supporters would be the Florida fair and open primaries. So if you vote yes on this, it's establishing the top 2 primary systems for primary elections for the state legislature and the other offices. No would keep the current system, closed primaries. Now, this is if you're a Republican, your candidate you could have from the primary the top 2 be Republicans and move to the general election, which obviously the Democrats and the other parties would not like. So that's the major impact of this one. Right now, this is polling below the threshold. It's at 58%, but it's still too close for comfort. And all voters vote Inc. If you want to research it, those are the ones that the individuals that had this on the ballot. So once again, the 2 highest vote getters will enter the general election. This really helps those that have not decided on a party, obviously, that are nonpartisan, independent. So that's this one in a nutshell, and it was led by a South Florida healthcare businessman that was looking to push this through. All right, the 4th Amendment, voter approval of constitutional amendments, Amendment 4. So this one really looks at some of the things that I talked about, protecting pregnant pigs. There's a lot of different things that, have made it to the Constitution because people had special interest or they wanted to see they could do it, as in the case of the pigs. Those that have been around a while know that. So Keep Our Constitution Clean is the one that pushed this through. So as it is now, a group like Keep Our Constitution Clean would get enough to get this on the ballot, and then it would have to go and be voted on, the 60%, and then it would be put into action in January. Well, this amendment, if passed, would keep that. So if it got to 60%, well, let's go back. If it didn't get to 60%, it would die on the first time around. If it got to 60%, it would be on next year's ballot again, which would allow groups to do more campaigning against or for it. And then once again, it would have to get to 60%, and then the following year. So it'd be a 2-year process. It's a way to kind of stall some of these amendments, or people using amendments to, bring people out, like the minimum wage, to bring people out to the polls to say, hey, you know what, $15 is great. Let's just go out and vote and not do any research. So this would put another step, another layer into that process. Right now, really the League of Women Voters oppose it. It's polling at 41%, so it wouldn't pass at this point. So it's something that you want to consider, and it would just be extending this amendment process. All right, moving on to the last two. Now, the last two have come to us from the Florida legislature and the House. So these are the people that we elected that made the decision to put this on here for us to vote on. So, a lot of people, take this into consideration when voting to make sure, that is by our elected officials. So this would increase the time you have to transfer your Save Our Homes benefit from 2 to 3 years. And that's the gist of this one. So if you vote yes, it supports extending the period during which a person may transfer Save Our Home benefits to a new homestead property from 2 to 3 years. And then obviously voting no, we keep it at the 2 year. The pros, taxable value increase are capped at 3% on homestead properties under the Save Our Home benefit. This would just give homeowners more time to transfer that tax break to a new property. This one passed unanimously in the Florida legislature. So they were in agreement on that. Local governments would lose some money. So that would be one of the downsides. And it was put through by Rick Roth, Florida State Representative. Right now, this one is polling for the UNF at 67%. So that's that one. And then to bring this one home, really, adding on to the Veterans Day that was Don talked about earlier, supporting veterans. This is an ad valorem tax discount for spouses of certain deceased veterans who had a permanent combat-related situation. So this one was actually put through by our very own Polk delegation. Sam Killebrew was leading the charge on this one. If you follow him, he supports this one. So it's right now polling at 88% to pass. And so really what this is a homestead property tax discount for deceased veterans with combat-related disabilities would carry over to a veteran's surviving spouse until he or she remarries or sells the property. If the spouse sells the property and does not remarry, the spouse's new primary residence may receive the homestead tax discount. So voting yes in support of this would, like I said, allowing the homestead tax to transfer over to a surviving spouse. This would provide further assistance for our veterans and their families. And this one also passed the Florida legislature unanimously. So with that, Alice asked me to try to stretch this to 20 minutes. I don't know where I'm at this one, but I try to stretch it as long as possible. But with that, I'll take questions. I don't know if you can see that picture. I'm glad the guy on the left, that handsome young fella, is on the call with us today. But that was my year as president. That was probably the best 4 presidents. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, that was the best, to be serious, that was probably the best year as a Rotarian for those on the call that have not been or had the opportunity to be a president of a Rotary Club. I strongly encourage you to put your name in the hat and get involved with the executive level of your club. So anyway.
Good to see you again, Ryan.
Yeah, it's
good to see you again, friend.
Yes. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Yes, okay. I have a question, and that is, what resources can voters use to learn more about the PACs that are funding the campaigns behind some of these amendments?
Some of the best ways, the simplest ways, is go to Ballotpedia, use the internet. You got to be careful sometimes with the newspapers because, especially when you get to the editorials, because they can be slanted. Those that read a lot of news coming out of South Florida, if you're conservative, you're not going to agree with a lot of those editorials. But you can do that and use that. The Florida Chamber, and it depends really on if an amendment impacts business or if it impacts veterans or things like that. And you may want to check with those local groups or those groups at the state level when it comes to the state constitution to find that. You can go to the supervisor of elections at the state level and find out who either sponsored it or who that citizen initiative is. As you see, we had 4 of those. those are really the ones that people need to take the time to research. I mean, the last two you need to research as well, because obviously it's an impact on the state. But when it comes to, you know, the citizens and groups, you can go to the polk election, or not polk elections, but the state elections website and find out. And a lot of times they have a hyperlink. It'll take you right to whoever that individual who that individual or group is.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question is, has the chamber taken a position on Amendment 5? And I would just add to that, or Business Voice, taken a position? No, we haven't. The only one that we've taken a position on is the Amendment 2. And for those that aren't familiar with the way the chamber works when it comes to advocacy, we have an advocacy committee, and then we have Business Voice, which is our PAC. They're made up of members. Members can join advocacy and let their voice be heard. They can join with an additional fee to the PAC. But what we do is Corey, the president, we take the amendments to the meeting, and there's a discussion. But we have to keep in mind what's going to impact businesses, because that's of our 1,300 members who we represent. You know, if you're a larger organization, you know, I know Joel, you know, he has individuals on his team. When, you know, that South Florida politician wanted to do that with, you know, the revenue they were generating. I mean, he has people on his team. Publix has people on the team. There's a lot of the 80% of our small businesses that are members, you know, they don't have those individuals to advocate for them. So we're really looking at those things that when we make a decision to support or oppose, that will impact businesses, the community, but businesses is number one, is to identify that. Now, obviously, quality of life is important. So, you know, we do monitor those situations that would impact that as well. All right. Next up, this is a question specific to Amendment number 1. And the question is getting to, who does this amendment exclude from voting? The wording of it is interesting. So who is excluded from voting if this amendment were to pass?
It's funny that question was asked. Really, and I was just going back to my notes. So there's no one really allows non-citizens to vote. So it's really not impacting. We don't let non-citizens vote. Now, I do have in my notes, San Francisco allows all parents, regardless of citizenship status, to vote when it comes to school board elections. But other than that, non-citizens are not voting. So really, it's something that someone took some time to put there to change the two words, which every citizen to only a citizen. That's it. I'm not an English major, but that's it. That would be, if it passes, it would, instead of reading every citizen, it would read only a citizen. But it wouldn't affect anyone because we don't allow non-citizens to vote.
Okay, and then there was an earlier question, I think that you already answered it, but if you could just reiterate it for the group and maybe even expound a little bit. How are the numbers trending on Amendment 2? And if people wanted to influence those trends, what steps could they maybe take?
Yes. First of all, if you know someone that's mailed in a ballot and this conversation comes, or if you've mailed in your ballot and this conversation comes up at home, you know, talk about it. That's one way to influence. You know, it's a crazy world now with people requesting the mail-in ballots and the early voting. The trending is, polling is going down. As I stated, like you said, 65%, 66% is where, when we first really started to pay attention to this, Amendment 2 was polling at. It's down to 60%. People tell me that, you know, a lot of times a lot of conservatives aren't participating in polls. So the hope is that, you know, individuals that haven't responded to the polls will go out and oppose this amendment. It's a dangerous amendment because of, you know, the current situation. Florida putting it in the Constitution and being the only state that has something like this in the Constitution. So, you know, really getting out there, talking, sharing on your social media. A lot of people are on social media. Moving away from the conversations about the top of the ballot and looking at the immediate impact of something like this, on businesses, all the parents, as I said, in the room. This is something conversation to have. If you have someone in middle school now or in late elementary school, if you have a child and they're, going to be entering the workforce, you want to make sure those jobs are there, because where do we gain that experience? We gain that experience in our entry-level positions at, fast food or Publix, things like that. And also talk to and get information into the hands of the senior citizens that are on fixed incomes. Those jobs for the retiree that wants to go out and bag groceries at Publix for, a couple hours a week and can only make so much money because they are retired. Those jobs may not be there. So really, it's important for us just to get this information out there and do the research and just talk about it and have conversations. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to be. Amendment 2 was put on the ballot, similar to the marijuana one, by our friend John Morgan. It's documented that he contributes a lot to the Democratic Party. So, putting something like this on there will get some of those people that didn't go out, and they're not going to understand the true impact of that. We've had, as a chamber, we've been promoting, so of course you get good and bad with, social media posts. And some individuals are like, oh, it'll be great, just, raise the minimum wage to $15 so people can buy stuff. Well, it's not going to work like that. The stores in downtown Lakeland are going to end up having to raise their prices. So, you're not advancing beyond that that threshold of what people consider poverty if everything else is going to go up when you make that change to the $15. But just doing your research and getting the information, and there's a lot of resources out there.
Okay, thank you. President Joel, there are no other questions in the chat box, so I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Amanda, thank you very much. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joel.
I would like to think this current year's group of presidents is the best year ever. In Tom Conger's day, we refer to that as the Dark Ages, but,
Well, didn't he, I think he was president and then he decided he had to walk away from work and retire or something like that. I don't know if that was the case.
That. He's got like a 2 handicap, I think, now. He's been practicing.
Yes, he's a pro golfer now. I can attest to that.
Yeah. There you go.
I hope to make a hole-in-one at the outing, Joel.
We're going to wipe up. Our team has this outing taken care of, you guys.
Okay, you guys get a chat room. Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've got this book waiting on you as a memento for you speaking to us today. This is a very, very, very timely conversation to have right now. So thank you for joining us and bringing all this stuff forward.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Trey, can you thank our visiting Rotarians and our guests?
We'd like to thank Doug McCall and Christina Spencer, our visiting Rotarians, as well as our guests, Carol Hornsby, Ed Young, and John Lout. Thank you all for coming and hope you come back.
Thank you, sir. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's always great to see you. So our weekly quote: voting is the expression of our commitment to ourselves, one another, this country, and this world. That's a quote by Sharon Salzberg. All right, next week's program is a surprise. So stay tuned for that. We'll have more news on that later. And absent any protest to the contrary, I will call this meeting adjourned. Have a great week, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.